Setting up automation to run on a AF series combine will be very similar to what we did on 260 series combines and 50 series combines as well. There'll be a few small differences. So up in our top menu bar, we have this wheat sheaving gear. If we hit that, that takes us into our automation settings, and it should take us to our basic tab. Now, first thing to note, harvest mode, automation, ACS, or manual. So we used to have an auto manual switch on the overhead console on the 250 series. We no longer have that. That is done here. So I have it set to automation. We get a little A over here to know that we are in automation mode. Crop type, I'm set to wheat right now. Work condition, I recommend leaving this on auto default. You could actually set up different work conditions for irrigated versus non-irrigated, straight cut canola versus swath canola if you want to get fancy. That has caused us issues in the past on 50 series, so normally I say keep it simple. Let's leave it on automation default. Strategy, we need to pick a strategy. So most commonly we're going to run in performance mode. So if we're not sure what those are, we can hit the little question mark above it. If I can hit it with my finger, and then it will give us a description of each mode. Now, best grain quality puts cracks as a priority. Performance mode puts loss as a priority, or keeping loss to minimum as a priority. Maximum throughput is going to do what it can to prevent loss and cracks, but it's not going to back down on ground speed unless it hits maximum engine load or your capped ground speed level. It will not slow down for loss, where performance mode it will. Fixed throughput is going to try and keep a constant throughput on the machine. There is some benefits to that in certain situations, but most commonly we're going to start in performance mode. You can switch these at any given time while running in the field and play with some different settings if you like. Now, target max ground speed. We are going to limit this for things that the combine can't see. So, is your knife cutting clean on your MacDon header? If the straw is a little green and it's leaving a little raggy, you may have to cap the speed at maybe 5 miles an hour or 5.5 miles an hour. If the field is too rough, things like that. If we want to basically limit the travel of the combine, that's where we do that. Now, maximum engine load still gives us full power of the combine, but we want to keep the combine running smoothly. We don't want it like loading up and almost plugging and stopping, cleaning out, going again. That because we want to load the inside of the combine consistently. Now, some days if it's a little bit tough, maybe it's the feeder house, maybe it's the rotor, wants to slug or slow us down or stop us to let it clean out, we may have to start at 80%. Then as the sun comes out and the heat comes on and the crop starts to dry, we might be able to increase that throughout the day. Again, we want to keep the combine running smooth and consistent. Now, sometimes if people are almost plugging, they go and they cap their ground speed. But then in the lighter areas or the drier areas, the combine won't actually speed up. And you'll end up doing 3.5 miles an hour all day when you only need to go 3.5 miles an hour in the low spot. So watch that you don't cap the ground speed for power things or plugging things. Okay. Now, when we go into our advanced tab, the next one down, I always like starting from automatic settings. Threshing condition, easy, medium, hard thresh. Lots of times we think for wheat we want to go to hard thresh, but I always say start on easy. Once we move up to medium or hard thresh, it changes some of the back end parameters on automation. For example, the vanes. Easy gives us 0 to 100% travel on our vanes. Medium gives us 0 to 50% travel. Hard thresh goes 0% and doesn't open up the vanes. So they are always slowed right down. And there may be times where we need those to speed up so we don't over thresh the straw, or we don't need to use that much horsepower. So start on easy, move up, as required. Adjust frequency. Very low, low, medium, high, very high. I usually run on either medium or high. This is how often it looks at what the automation's doing and how often it tweaks the settings. Again, the more variability you have, the higher you want this, high or very high. If you have a very flat, smooth, very consistent field, ripe and very consistent, you could run on low, maybe even very low. Most times medium or high, I think, is where I would run. Feed rate sensitivity. You're going to want to run on high or very high to ensure that the combine is changing or reacting as quick as it can to the field conditions. When you come out of that low spot and it gets lighter, a lot of people complain that the automation doesn't accelerate quick enough. This is where that can help by running it up in high or very high. Most people that are new to automation find that they feel it a little bit jerky, or it's changing speeds without them and they almost they don't like it. It feels funny. So sometimes a new user, I might start them on medium, but then to get it to work to where it needs to be, I would probably bump that up to high or very high. Maximum rotor speed on the bottom here, we can cap what our rotor speed's doing. If we want to save straw for baling, or if we're just over threshing the straw and overloading our cleaning system, we can cap out our rotor speed there for that. Sieve load configuration, we want that turned on. That gives us our sieve pressure bar on the main run screen. Ranges, we want that on so we can go and adjust range configurations if we need to. And there's a reset button here. Automation is a learning system, so as it runs, it learns and gets smarter. And if we go and change a bunch of things or it doesn't seem to be performing properly, sometimes we need to hit reset and start that whole learning process over again. So once we hit reset, then we got to go back in, set up our basic, our advanced tabs, readjust our sensitivities, and let the combine go out and learn again. Sensitivity button. So these are basic sensitivities for our thresher loss, sieve loss, tailings volume, mog sensitivity, and broken grain. We do have a reset button here to take those back to factory defaults. But again, if our sieve loss is showing low and we have lots of sieve loss, we would bump the sieve loss sensitivity up, which makes the funnel run higher. Which then automation can see that it's running higher and it'll try to adjust the combine to slow it down. Same theory applies to all of these. Headland mode. So we quite often will run a fan speed offset. Lots of times we will drop 50, 100 RPM on the headlands. So as the crop mat dissipates off the sieve, it will drop the fan speed down and not blow that last bit of grain out. We also have the ability to open or close the sieves on a headland. Now, lots of people don't want to do that. They don't see the need for it. But as you're running throughout the day, once the sieves don't move a whole lot, even with automation, once they find their happy spot, they generally stay there. We can get rocks and debris and stuff stuck in the sieves. And then when you do go to adjust it, they either bend or stress the linkages. So lots of times by opening them up 3 or 4 mils on the headlands, every time you hit shift resume, lift your header up, the sieve opens up and it will clean that sieve out. And then when you put the header back down, it'll go back to where it needs. This should prevent or reduce the amount of times you got to do sieve cals. Your sieve should last longer. Should be a good thing to do. Ranges tab. Now we can go in on any one of these ranges and tweak. Now normally these ranges for a predefined crop are good. Sometimes our crop conditions aren't ideal and sometimes we need to play or adjust. Now quite often what we might do, maybe we're struggling and we need to open up our sieve range. Maybe we need to run a little more sieve and prevent it from closing too far. So we can actually go in and change the range of our pre-sieve. Now, these settings can also be handy if we're doing non-supported crops and cheating and using an automation. So for example, I might set up wheat as a crop type when I'm combining lentils. So I would go in and for lentils, I would obviously not run this rotor speed. 1000 to 1150 is pretty aggressive. So for lentils, I might go in and change this to 400 to 500, for example. I'm going to reset that and leave it where it is. I do have some recommendations that I can supply to people that will show some non-supported crops running automation that may help you work through that. Status just goes through and shows us some information on our combine, how things are set, what sensors we have, that sort of thing. Info gives you some recommendations: combine clearance, rotor gear, feeder drum position, concave type, separator grates, front sieve types, rear sieves, return cover, spike. So we do have return covers, spiked or smooth on these combines. And elevator speed, standard or high speed. Now, in Browse, we can go in and we can see some more detail. So we can set up 2 different work conditions just to compare. So right now I got automation, default, and hard threshing. So you can pick 2 of them and compare. Now you will see some speeds. So hard threshing, they're running the rotors faster than automation default. Now, something interesting here is when we look at, there's our concave clean grain upper sieve. We're showing 14 millimeters on our upper sieve. Now, when we go into front sieve clean grain, so this is front sieve upper max throughput. Yeah, front sieve upper clean grain is 11 mils. So we have an offset between our front and back sieves here. So normally our front and back sieve top or our front and back sieve bottom run off of the same switch. So when you open one, the other one opens the same. Now we do have the ability to put an offset in there where we maybe have the front one slightly more open or slightly more closed. Now on the top sieve, we can picture the front one kind of like we did the pre-sieve on our old combines. So if we have a dirty sample and we're struggling to clean it up, we may want to run a 3 mil offset is what they're recommending here, from 14 mil down to 11 mil. So this is a starting point where to put that offset. Now low sieve clean grain is at 8 mil, and if we go to front low sieve, 7 mil, so they have a 1 mil offset on the bottom one. That will force a little more returns, pushes the material a little bit further towards the back. So this is a good place to look and see where to put that sieve offset. Now, once we have our automation setup done, we pull in the field and we run and we see where our funnels are running. Now, automation needs to see, before automation will do anything, these funnels have to hit this 70% point or this bar across the top or near the top of the funnel. If we are running our sieve loss down here as our happy spot at a 1/4 bushel an acre loss, by the time it hits here, we might be well over a bushel an acre loss, and automation will then try to fix it. If we have our 1/4 bushel loss up here at the top of the green, then when it hits here at a 1/3 or 0.4 of a bushel an acre loss, automation's already trying to fix it. So generally we want to keep our funnels, our loss funnels, running up towards that bar. Now, 2 ways to set this up. 1, our funnel's running low, we see more loss. We can go into our automation shortcut, go to our sensitivities, and we can adjust the sensitivity. And we can bring that guy up a little bit to bring our funnel higher. The other option is to click on this button, and we do have a sensitivity here where we can also run that. And we can adjust that sensitivity up. Now, once we're running an automation and we drive for a appropriate amount of time, because automation needs to think a little bit and run for a while to get smart. So after we'd run, quarter pass or something like that, when we tap on this button, it's going to give us a different screen here, and it's going to give us the more is allowed, loss is good, too much, or way too much. Now, if you're going to use those buttons, I recommend you do like too much, hit OK, then be patient and let it run for a while. It might take a bigger jump than you plan to, and you may have to let it run for a while and let it figure out where it is. I normally like bumping this up in smaller intervals and step it up slowly. But different ways to set it. Just be patient. Automation is not instant. It may take a couple passes to settle in. The longer it runs, the smarter it gets, and the better it's going to work. The worst thing you can do is drive 500 feet and say this is not working. You have to do several passes and let it learn and let it figure itself out. Over on the right hand side, we have our sieve pressure gauge. Now, this will show low pressure up to high pressure. Ideally, we want to be somewhere in the middle, in the green zone between these two bars. Now, when we first start up the combine, nothing going through it. The pressure bar will be down here in the yellow. As we start running, the pressure is going to come up. That's material on top of the sieves. Okay, so if we go into a light spot where there's not a lot of material, the sieve pressure drops down, which then tells it to back off the fan speed so we don't blow things out. We get into a spot where we have a lot of material going on the sieve pressure comes higher, the fan speed will chase up to it to try and get that back to that balanced state. This combine has pressure sensors at the front of the front sieve on top, so it can tell if the material's coming off the grain pan unevenly, if we have an uneven load on the grain pan, and it'll do a side shake of the grain pan to level that, to try and even out those pressure sensors. It also has a set of pressure sensors at the rear of the top sieve, and it's doing that to see how the sieves are balanced. And if the sieves aren't balanced side to side, whether it be because of a side hill or improper loading from the front, it'll do a side shake on the top sieve to level that one out. Those we can see on somewhere in here. On the header tab, grain pan side shake and upper shoe side shake. If it's performing that side shake, these numbers will change to give you an indication of what's going on. So that is automation in a nutshell.